Welcome time travelers and welcome new time travelers. As always, if you're new to this channel and enjoy learning about history one event at a time, then don't forget to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're going to start out in 1513 when Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de Leon landed on the coast of Florida. On this day, in 1631, King Charles II of England officially proclaimed the charter he had granted in March to William Penn for the Quaker colony of Pennsylvania in North America. Moving on to 1865, when, in the face of advancing Union forces, Confederate troops evacuated Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederate States of America during the American Civil War. In 1891, German sculptor and painter Max Ernst, who was a leading advocate for internationality in art, was born. Irrationality in art was born. Our next stop will be 1914, when British actor Alec Guinness, who was known for the variety and excellence of his stage and screen characterizations, was born. 3 years later, in 1917, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war against Germany. On this day in 1942, 3 soldiers were slain and 5 others were wounded in gun battle between Nero and white troopers at Fort Dix in New Jersey. 1960, that's 1960, brought us France and USSR signed in Paris agreement on trade, scientific and culture exchanges, and for cooperation in peaceful uses of atomic energy. 8 years later, in 1968, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey had its world premiere in Washington, D.C. It became a classic, settling the benchmark for scientific films. 10 years later, in 1978, the soap opera Dallas debuted as a 5-part miniseries on American television. Hugely popular, it became a running series and revitalized primetime dramas. Moving on to 1982, when Argentine troops seized the Falkland Island Isles of Malvins, participating in the Falkland Island War with Great Britain. Our next stop will be in 1992, when American organized crime boss John Gotti was convicted on 13 criminal counts, including the murder of Paul Castellano. I'm not sure if I'm not saying that correctly, and others. Racketeering and obstruction of justice, was sentenced to life in prison. 3 years before the turn of the century, in 1997, the state of Michigan reports 153 cases of hepatitis traced to strawberries imported from Mexico. Several other states are also at risk. Bishop of Rome and head of the Roman Catholic Church from 1978, Pope John Paul II was the first non-Italian pope in 455 years and the first from a Slavic country, passed away in Vatican City on this day in 2005. And finally, in 2015, Portuguese filmmaker Manuel de Oliveira, who is known for richly meditative and often self-reflective films, were frequently inspired by literally and theoretical work, passed away at the age of 106. And with that, we return to 2024 and our current history. Let's see what this year has in store for us. Until then.